Isabella, a 24-year-old waitress, serves wine in the most exclusive restaurant in the city. She wears the only earrings she owns, an inheritance from her grandmother. When Victoria Ashworth, the wealthiest woman in London, sees those earrings, her world collapses. The wine glass slips from her hands and shatters on the floor. Those earrings belong to her daughter Charlotte, who died 15 years ago. But how can a stranger have the earrings of her dead daughter? What they're about to discover will change both their lives forever. The restaurant, the Golden Swan, stood in the heart of London like a hidden jewel, where the city's elite gathered every evening. The air was thick with refined aromas, Cornish crab, champagne krug, and that unmistakable blend of power and money that only the most exclusive venues can emanate. Crystal chandeliers from Waterford hung from the ceiling like fallen stars, reflecting golden light onto floors of white marble veined with grey. Isabella Thompson, 24 years old, moved between the tables with that studied grace she had learned during her 5 years of service. Each of her movements was calculated, every step silent on the low heels that never disturbed the client's conversations. She wore the impeccable uniform, black blouse ironed to perfection, white skirt to the knee, chestnut hair gathered in a chignon that never let a single strand escape. But it was her earrings that truly captured attention. Antique gold worked by hand, with small rubies that looked like crystallized drops of blood. They danced delicately with each of her movements, reflecting the restaurant's warm light. They were her only inheritance from Grandmother Rose, the only precious thing she possessed in a life made of sacrifices and postponed dreams. Grandmother Rose had died 5 years earlier, leaving her only those earrings and a tiny flat in Whitechapel. She had told her to always wear them, that one day she would understand why they were special. Victoria Ashworth occupied table number 7, as she had every Thursday evening for 3 years. 58 years carried with the elegance of one born into luxury who had never known want. Widowed for 10 years, owner of 3 luxury hotels between London, Edinburgh, and Bath. Her blonde hair was gathered in an aristocratic chignon that permitted no imperfection. The beige Burberry suit cost more than Isabella earned in 6 months, and the pearls around her neck had been inherited through generations. That November evening, while typical London drizzle wrapped the city in a grey embrace, Isabella approached Victoria's table with the silver tray in perfect balance. The Bordeaux 2015 that Victoria always ordered served in the correct glass, at the correct temperature. It was a routine that had repeated for years, a silent ballet between waitress and client. But when Isabella leaned to pour the wine, Victoria looked up from her mobile phone, and the world stopped. Those earrings. Victoria's heart stopped beating for an infinite moment. She recognized them immediately, as if she had seen them yesterday instead of 15 years ago. She had chosen them personally at Tiffany & Co. on Bond Street, had spent a fortune for her daughter's 16th birthday. She remembered every detail, the assistant who had presented them on a black velvet tray, Charlotte's smile when she wore them for the first time, the way they suited her perfectly. The same earrings that Charlotte wore the night of the accident, the night that shattered Victoria's life forever. The burgundy leather menu slipped from her manicured hands and fell to the floor with a dull sound that seemed to echo throughout the entire restaurant. Her voice came out as a broken whisper. "Those earrings belong to my daughter." Isabella looked at her with confusion, noticing how the color had vanished from Victoria's face. The other clients began to turn around, drawn by the unmistakable sound of human suffering. Victoria rose so abruptly that the red velvet chair tipped backwards. Her legs trembled, blue eyes filled with tears she hadn't shed in years. She whispered her daughter's name like a prayer. Charlotte Ashworth. My daughter. She died on 23rd of October, 2009. She was 16 years old. Isabella felt the silver tray slip from her hands. The world began to spin around her, reality fragmented like the crystal shattering on the marble floor. Her grandmother had never spoken of any Charlotte, had never mentioned working for such a wealthy family. Victoria approached with unsteady steps. She asked the girl what her grandmother's name was. When Isabella replied that it was Rose Fletcher, Victoria brought both hands to her mouth, stifling a sob that had been waiting too long. Rose worked for them, she said. Charlotte adored her more than she adored her own mother. Victoria's office on the 20th floor of the Ashworth Imperial Hotel was much more than a simple workplace. It was a sanctuary of elegant pain, a private museum built around the memory of a child who would never grow up. The walls were lined with solid mahogany that rose to the ceiling, and antique bookcases guarded leather-bound volumes that no one read anymore. But it was the east wall that told the true story of this room. An entire section dedicated entirely to Charlotte. Photos framed in solid silver that showed every moment of her brief life. Charlotte as a child blowing out candles on her 3rd birthday, with blonde curls falling over her shoulders and blue eyes shining with that pure joy that only children know how to have. Charlotte, at 8 years old, hugging Biscuit, the golden retriever who had been her most faithful playmate. Charlotte, as a teenager, smiling shyly at the camera, already beautiful like her mother, but with that sweetness that made her special. Isabella sat rigidly on the edge of a cognac leather armchair, aged by time, still in her work uniform. The earrings now weighed on her like stones of guilt, each reflection reminding her that she wore something that didn't belong to her, something that carried the weight of a tragedy she didn't understand. Victoria held a solid silver frame in her hands, her fingers caressing the glass as if she could still touch her daughter's face. She recounted that this was Charlotte on her 16th birthday. She had organized a garden party with all her friends. Charlotte didn't want it, said she was too old for birthday parties, but Victoria had insisted. She wanted to give her everything the world could offer. The photo showed Charlotte radiant in front of a 3-tier cake, surrounded by pink and gold balloons. Around her neck shone exactly those earrings that Isabella now wore. She explained that she had bought them at Tiffany 3 weeks earlier. They cost over £5,000, but seeing her daughter's happiness was priceless. Charlotte had hugged her so tightly that Victoria thought she would break her ribs. Victoria walked to the panoramic window that dominated London. The city stretched beneath them like a sea of golden lights, the Thames winding like a luminous ribbon through the night. But Victoria saw only the past, only the memories that had tormented her for 15 years. She recounted that Rose had worked for their family for 20 years. She arrived when Charlotte was barely 3 years old. Her husband James always traveled for business, and she was too young, too frightened to be a mother. Rose became much more than a domestic employee. She became Charlotte's second mother, perhaps the better of the two. Victoria's voice became softer, imbued with nostalgia. Rose always knew what to say when Charlotte had nightmares. She knew how to make her laugh when she was sad. She knew how to prepare those scones that only Charlotte ate. When Charlotte started secondary school, it was Rose who helped her with literature homework, not Victoria. Victoria was always too busy with the hotels, business, with everything except her daughter. Isabella asked why her grandmother would have given her those earrings if they belonged to Charlotte. Victoria turned slowly, her blue eyes now shining with held-back tears. She explained that when Charlotte died, it was Rose who identified the body. Victoria couldn't even enter the morgue. It was Rose who chose the dress for the funeral. It was she who combed her hair one last time. And it was she who told Victoria that the earrings weren't there. The room filled with a silence heavy as lead. Rose had said they must have fallen in the accident, that they were lost forever. They had searched everywhere, in the car wreckage, on the tarmac, even in the hospitals, but they never found them. Isabella suggested that perhaps her grandmother had found them later. But Victoria shook her head, a tear running down her cheek. She thought that Rose knew something she didn't know, something about her daughter's death. Victoria's voice became a fear-laden whisper. Perhaps Charlotte's death hadn't been the traffic accident everyone had believed. And perhaps Rose was the only person who knew what had really happened that night. In Isabella's flat in Whitechapel, the two women searched through grandmother's memories.
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like, and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
Isabella found a brown leather diary hidden at the bottom of a dusty box, under old photographs and letters yellowed by time. The diary's pages told a terrible story that neither of the two had ever imagined. Charlotte had discovered the truth about her parents. She had found hidden documents in Victoria's office that revealed that James Ashworth wasn't her biological father. She had discovered the secret that Victoria had hidden for 16 years. The married man, the clandestine relationship, the pregnancy that changed everything. Rose's diary revealed that Charlotte had become obsessed with the idea of finding her biological father. She had begged Rose to help her, but the woman had advised her to wait, to speak with Victoria first. But Charlotte was as stubborn as her mother, and had decided that if Victoria wouldn't tell her the truth, she would discover it herself. The page from 23 October 2009 broke both women's hearts. Charlotte had left the house at 8 o'clock in the evening, lying to her mother. She wasn't going to a friend's house to study. She was going to see William Sterling, Member of Parliament, married man with 3 children. Her true biological father. The diary's last page was the most devastating. Charlotte had died with a broken heart, searching for a father who had rejected her before even knowing her. Rose had taken the earrings from Charlotte's body before Victoria could see them, protecting the mother from an even more painful truth. Rose had written that one day she would give those earrings to the right person, to the person who would know how to honor the memory of a girl who died searching for the love that had been denied her. Victoria collapsed reading those words. MP Sterling. When she had discovered the pregnancy 16 years earlier, he had offered her money to disappear and never acknowledge the child. Sterling Manor rose in the Cotswolds Hills like a castle of grey stone, imposing and cold. William Sterling, 65 years old, awaited them at the door with a face marked by fear of a confrontation postponed too long. In the drawing room filled with pre-Raphaelite paintings and period furniture, the truth emerged like an open wound that had never stopped bleeding. Sterling confessed that that night Charlotte had arrived at his home in tears, begging for recognition and paternal love. But he had rejected her with a cruelty that had tormented him for 15 years. He had told her that her mother was a liar, that she had invented everything to blackmail him. He had driven her away, terrorized that his wife would discover the truth and the scandal would ruin his political career. He recounted seeing Charlotte's heart break before his eyes, hearing her sobs as she ran to the car, listening to the sound of tires screeching on the tarmac as the girl fled as if escaping from hell. From a secret drawer, he extracted a yellowed envelope, sealed and never opened. Charlotte had left it for him before leaving, but he had never had the courage to read it. Victoria opened the letter with trembling hands. Charlotte's words spoke of forgiveness and understanding. She said she wasn't angry with her mother for hiding the truth. And she had one last wish, that her earrings should go to a girl who worked in a small restaurant, one who had the same sad eyes as her. The letter revealed the final mystery. Charlotte had seen Isabella in the small restaurant where she worked before the Golden Swan, and had recognized herself in that loneliness. She had asked Rose to take care of that girl if something happened to her. At Highgate Cemetery, before Rose Fletcher's grave, the drizzle enveloped everything like an embrace. The headstone bore an inscription that now took on a completely new meaning. Guardian of secrets, protector of innocent souls. Isabella found other pages of the diary hidden in the lining of her grandmother's coat. The words revealed a plan orchestrated with surgical precision, woven with the love of a grandmother who had seen two broken souls and decided to unite them. Rose had observed Isabella for years before Charlotte's death. An orphaned girl, alone, who worked to finance her studies. She had seen in her the same loneliness that tormented Charlotte, the same eyes that sought love and belonging. The diary recounted how Rose had arranged for Isabella to be hired at the Golden Swan 3 years after her death. How she had orchestrated everything so that Victoria would dine there every Thursday evening. How she had prepared every detail for that encounter that would change everything. The diary's last page revealed the final truth. Rose had understood that Charlotte's earrings should go to Isabella not only because she needed beauty in her life, but because she was the only person who could help Victoria heal from the pain that was slowly killing her. The plan was perfect in its simplicity. Charlotte had died searching for a father's love. Isabella was alive, searching for a family's love. Pain could transform into love if it found the right people. A final letter was addressed directly to Isabella. Rose explained to her that she was the gift that Charlotte had left to her mother, and that Victoria was the family that Charlotte had left to her. Victoria wept for the first time in 15 years, embracing Isabella. Two broken souls that reconstructed themselves together, guided by the love of a grandmother who had seen beyond death. 2 years later, London had witnessed a transformation that no one could have predicted. The Ashworth Imperial Hotel, which once only echoed with the silent steps of Victoria's solitude, now pulsed with new life. On the 20th floor, the office that had been a mausoleum of painful memories had become the beating heart of something wonderful. Isabella Thompson Ashworth sat behind the mahogany desk as managing director. She wore a tailor-made navy blue suit, hair gathered in a professional chignon that spoke of authority earned through sacrifice and dedication. Around her neck always shone Charlotte's earrings, but they were no longer symbols of pain. They had become amulets of hope, bridges between past and future. Victoria occupied the opposite armchair, completely transformed. Her face, once marked by 15 years of inconsolable mourning, now radiated a light that seemed to come from within. Her blue eyes shone with that joy of living that she had believed lost forever. Together they had created the Charlotte Ashworth Foundation, which had grown beyond all expectations. It had offices in 3 cities, employed 60 people, and had already helped over 200 orphaned young people find work, and, above all, a family. One day, William Sterling presented himself in their office. He was a completely transformed man. His hair had become completely white, his face thinner and marked by wrinkles that spoke of sleepless nights and deep remorse. But in his eyes there was a peace that had never been there before. He recounted having divorced his wife, having confessed the truth to his children and the press. He had lost everything: the manor, his political career, friends, respect. But for the first time in 20 years, he could sleep without dreaming of Charlotte's weeping face. He donated everything he had left to the foundation. 2 flats in London, some investments, the bank accounts he had managed to save. He wanted to honor Charlotte after having rejected her in life. Then he asked Isabella if she wanted him to walk her down the aisle at her wedding to Alexander. For the first time in her life, Isabella would have someone who looked at her with paternal pride as she walked towards her future. Victoria embraced them both, creating a circle of redemption that none of the 3 would have thought possible. The wedding was celebrated in the garden of the Ashworth Imperial Hotel, transformed into an open-air cathedral. Isabella walked towards the altar accompanied by William, while Victoria was her maid of honor, elegant in a champagne-colored dress. During the vows, Isabella continued to touch the earrings, sharing that moment of perfect happiness with Charlotte, who had made all this possible even after death. On Rose Fletcher's grave appeared a small marble plaque. "Thank you for knowing that love always finds its way home, even when it seems lost forever." In the final toast, William rose and said words that none of the guests ever forgot. Charlotte had died at 16, searching for a father, but at 65, she had finally taught him how to become one. That night, under London's stars, Isabella whispered thanks to Charlotte and Grandmother Rose. Love isn't measured by duration, but by intensity, and what they had shared would last forever. If this story made you shed at least one tear, if you felt your heart tighten thinking of Isabella finally finding a family, then you must watch the next video, because the story doesn't end here. In the next episode, you'll discover what happens when Victoria receives a mysterious letter that will change everything once again. A letter that comes from the past and reveals a secret that not even Grandmother Rose knew. Click on the next video now. Don't wait a second, because what you're about to discover will leave you speechless. And if you haven't already, subscribe and activate the bell, because every week we publish stories that will make you believe again in love, destiny, and the beauty of being human. Like, if you cried, share. If you believe every object has a soul, and comment telling us, what's the object that has the most meaning for you? The next video is waiting for you. Don't keep it waiting. Click now.